Well, hello everyone. I'm Matt Williamson. How you guys doing? Probably better now after that game. It at least leaves a good taste in your mouth for this super long, extended bye week before the season we got coming up here, which, again, I ask you, please give me some ideas for things you want to hear before the season starts, because content can be tough this week. But I didn't mean to do this transition, but as can current state of preseason football. Evaluating these games, not just the Steeler games, are brutal, and it's been a very difficult watch. So, as usual, though, 2 podcasts after the game. I have some deeper dives, some things I've found, some snap count stuff that I think you'll enjoy. So, first off, I thought it was a pretty good quarterback day overall from the Steelers. I hope Plumlee's on the practice squad. He actually returned punts. He's returning kicks still. He's going to be really useful on the practice squad. And it seems like his teammates really appreciate his efforts and talents and, all the different looks he can help prepare for opposing teams. I would love to see him in camp next year, so I'm hoping he ends up being a practice squad guy. I thought Wilson did what you wanted. I thought overall the quarterbacks pushed the ball down the field, and as a coaching point as well, and made some throws, made some plays. I know it's not super exciting, but I think Allen is a real solid third quarterback for any team in this league. He's a professional that's going to play a long time in this league and, retire with a lot of millions in the bank. And that's something to be said for that. Other thing I've brought up to you guys before, but I hadn't really broke it down to the lowest common denominator. But man, is it apparent in the preseason that when George Pickens has been on the field, Arthur Smith is feeding him like crazy. Will that translate to the, so how about this? He played 5 snaps, Pickens, 5, obviously a tiny sample size. He only ran 2 routes. They ran the ball 3 of those 5 snaps. On those 2 routes, he was targeted both times. Now, if he plays 60 snaps and runs 20 routes, that doesn't mean they're going to target him all 20 times. Of course, you know what I mean? But it is clear to me that the little he plays, Arthur Smith feeds him the football, which I love, and one of Smith's big criticisms, I would say, was didn't get the ball in the hands of his best players in Atlanta. I think that's half true, and it certainly is not true in Tennessee. And maybe he drifted a little from A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry over and over and over when he was the head coach because he didn't have anybody to reel him in. I get the hunch that the Steelers' best players are going to get the football. So I stole this from Pro Football Focus, and they just say it well. The wide receiver rotation has been very consistent through the preseason. George Pickens and Van Jefferson have been the starters, while Austin Mann's the slot and Scotty Miller's the primary backup. More on him in a minute, but those 4, to me, almost definitely making the team. Roman Wilson, of course, is a total wild card. If he could be a upgrade at slot or better than Miller before long, I'd be really interested in that. But I also think that they move Pickens around a lot more than, coordinators and play callers of the past, which I'm intrigued with. So the receiver stuff is pretty clear. That doesn't mean they're not going to get someone to be named later. This episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From the preseason, NFL to college kicking off, BetOnline is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our winner-take-all $300,000 NFL Survivor pool for the upcoming season. When the game's over, head over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today and use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, all caps, and get in on the action. Bet online, the game starts here. So I mentioned Smith's time in Atlanta. And one of the criticisms or issues was tight end usage. You know, Pitts is a very different tight end than anyone really in the league. But there were times when the tight end rotation would certainly frustrate Atlanta fans. Now, the Freiermuth stuff, I don't know if it's only preseason and we'll laugh at this after week 1 or 2. But we've seen, again, I'm stealing this from Pro Football Focus, who charts these things. So I'm going to read it off to you. Freiermuth only played in 6 of a possible 12 snaps over the first 2 drives. So there was 2 drives when the big dogs were out there. He was only on the field for 50% of those. Arthur Smith's the Steelers' new offensive coordinator, and through the preseason, we've seen a heavy rotation of tight ends. In this past game, Freiermuth continued to rotate on the second drive at a time when Najee and Pickens were both done playing for the day. So I kind of misspoke there a little bit. Like, even on drive 2, when Najee and Pickens are done, Freiermuth's still out there. That doesn't really concern me, but the fact that he only played 6 of a possible 12 snaps during that time is odd to me. But how about this? Over the entire preseason, Freiermuth played 3 drives in the first game, 6 drives the second, and 2 drives the third. But during that time, he played in 31 of 53 offensive snaps and 58% of Pittsburgh's offensive snaps. So before he got pulled, he was only out there for 58% of the snaps. That included running a route on 61% of Pittsburgh's passing plays. He's been on the field for 63% of Pittsburgh's snaps in 11 personnel, only 27% in 12 personnel. And again, this isn't after he's been pulled for the game. I mean, of the drives he was factored in on it all, when they're in 12, 1 back, 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, he's only been out there 27% of the time. When they're in 13, he was out there 100% of the time. And when they were in 21, 2 backs, 1 tight end, 50. So the real sticking point here, is he going to play in 12 personnel? I don't know. That would be weird to me if he didn't. I thought Loudermilk played really well in this game. And with Lee sitting, I think the plan, and I got to think about this more, is to try to get Lee on the practice squad. And I wonder if Loudermilk might have saved his roster spot on this game. Or he certainly made a stronger case. I think you guys all know that Nick Herbig was really, really good in this game. And I just did a podcast with Tim Benz 1 second ago. And I suggested, would it be crazy to get Herbig, Watt, and Highsmith? Something we saw when the Steelers had Dupree, Watt, and Ingram on the field together. 3 outside linebacker edge types on the field together. It wouldn't be that hard to do, but you'd probably be taking, and I'm only talking about for 5 snaps, something like that, a game. But it's just one more way to up his usage. One of them could come off the ball. Now you might have to take Peyton Wilson or someone like that off the field. I mean, you can only play with 11. But anyway, so he rushed the passer 6 times in this game. You would think more because he had 2 sacks. This is kind of like the Pickens stuff. And a hurry. So his pass rush win rate was 50%. 50% of the dropbacks he was on the field, he greatly affected the passer. Pretty good. Pretty good. The slot situation still worries me. And it wouldn't shock me at all if Wednesday I'm doing a bunch of research on a veteran slot corner. You know what I mean? That is not on the team as we speak. Graham looked like the starter. Bishop's in the mix. Neither's really impressed or taken the job, though. Which shouldn't shock us. I mean, they're not first-round picks. It's a position that they have not really invested in. All right. Quick sip of water. Snap count stuff. This can be a little wordy, but I do think it's interesting. And I also think it's the least interesting of the 3 preseason games because, well, we all watched the second half and there was some names on here I don't really know anything about. But I do like to tell them to you. The Steelers had 46 offensive snaps. Guys leading the way, Mason McCormick with 26. Joey Fisher is a guard with 24. Broderick Jones played 19. Fitzpatrick, Frazier played 19. Takeem Doss, the offensive lineman they picked up from the Ravens, from what I recall, 18 snaps. Quez Watkins and Scott Miller were 17. Kyle Allen, 16. McCollum, 16. 15 for Devery Hamilton, Darnell Washington, Anderson Hardy, Spencer Anderson, Justin Fields, Aaron Shampkin, James Daniels, Dan Moore Jr. all came in at 14. 13 for Van Jefferson and Rodney Williams, who I think is going to have a tough time making this team. 11 for Beach, Siamalu, both guards, and Calvin Austin. 9 for Watts, 9 for Sokol, the tight end. Plumlee was out there for 8, Pruitt for 8, Connor Hayward for 8. Coletto only 7. I think that's noteworthy. Jerry Jenkins, wide receiver, for 7. Pat Freiermuth for 6. Dwan Edwards for 6. Pickens for 5. Jacob Copeland for 5. Russell Wilson for 5. Cordell Patterson 4. Luther, the receiver, for 4. Only 3 for Najee, 1 carry. And Jonathan Ward got out there for 1 play. Tough to make the team when you only get 1 play. All right, the defense was on the field much longer, as we talked about yesterday. They were out there for 74 snaps, which is a lot. Jalen Elliott, the Elliott that I got wrong last week, was out there for 62 out of 74. Zion Gilbert, who I mentioned that, boy, I'm seeing him a lot, 56. 47 for Kyron Johnson, who I like. Jacoby Windman had 46. 42 for Marcus Haynes, he's an edge guy. And Mark Robinson. Jacob Slade for 40. A lot of these guys we're not going to really need to know much about, by the way, including probably Keandre Thomas at 39, Julius Welshoff at 34. Maybe he's a practice squatter, probably will be somehow on the team. Loudermilk's 33, LaQuay Washington at 31, Dean Lowry 31, Willington Pavilion 29, Ryan Watts 28, KZ for 25, Kyler McMichael 22, 20 for Beanie Bishop, Cameron Sutton, and Thomas Graham. Interesting. All 3 slot options, all played exact number of snaps. Trice for 19, but then got banged up. Spencer for 19, Adams for 19, or for 14 for Adams, Tizino for 14. Leal, he got a hip drop tackle called against him too. Leal had 13, Landon Roberts for 10, Herbig for 9, Dante Jackson only 8, Rush for only 8, Elliott for only 7, Queen for only 6, Benton for only 6. Boy, it seemed like Benton and Herbig and those guys were out there more than that, as disruptive as they were. Minka for only 6, Ogunjobi for 5, and Miles Killebrew for 2. The special team stuff, though, is more intriguing to me. Is Windman led the way. I mean, this is the last chance to really impress. 23 special team snaps for Windman. 21 for Coletto. So maybe they know exactly what he can do as a fullback, but they don't yet know, is he worth keeping as a special teamer? And that's the question to me. LaQuay Washington and Jalen Elliott. Boy, Elliott had a busy day. Each had 18. Kyron Johnson, who I like, was out there for 17. I think that's important. Watts for 15. Sokol for 14. So some of that is just saving your best guys, like the Connor Haywards of the world and your core special teamers. You know, I didn't mention Matakevich, Killebrew. So some of it's just kind of resting your starters on special teams. But I looked at it more as a chance for Coletto, Windman, Johnson, Watts, you know, those guys to make an impact on special teams and showed they belonged. So that's what I got for today. My next podcast, I don't know if I'll take one day off or not, but I'm probably going to do my best to project a 53 before Tuesday. So I guess if I record that Monday, you guys can listen to it before the cut day. Obviously, I'll do one right after final roster comes out. But here's one thing. I had a really good conversation with Mike Pursuta off the air before we did the post-game show. And we were going through, who's their 53? And, I wasn't jotting it down exactly, but I'm kind of thinking, Coletto, yes, no, et cetera. And most years, it's like, man, I'd really hate to cut that guy. This year, there were maybe 3 names that I end up putting on the 53, give or take, or we thought had a real good chance that I thought, I could do without that guy. Not that this roster is bad. It's just the very bottom of the roster to me is weaker than it has been or that I've perceived in late August in previous years. And some of that's because you get too excited about guys anyway, But there's a couple guys that are borderline NFL stealers for Tuesday at 4:00 that I think will make the team that I would say, I don't have much hope for them, big picture. So check that out. All right, over and out.